It's like me too.
Oh, well, that's not
אורך ימים משביע ובערב בישועתי. תמים פעלו כי חוד רחם משפט אל אמונה ועיניו אל צדיק וישר הוא עצרו תמים בכל פועל מיומה לא מטיפה לשליט במטה ומאמינים בחיים מוריד שוב ויעל עצרו תמים בכל מעשה מיומה אליו מה תעשה אומר עושה וחסד שינה לנו תעשה זכות הניקת כסף כשירו ועשה צדיק בכל רחב עצרו תמים מלך אפיים ולרחמים חמונה וחוסנה על אבות ובניתי לך אדון הסליחות ורחמים צדיק אתה אדוני למיתו בחיות אשר בידך פתאון כל רוחות חלילה לך זיכרוננו למחות ויונה עיניך ורחמים עלינו בכוחות היא לך אדון הרחמים והסליחות אדם אם בן שנה יחיה עוד שנים תחיה מה יתרון לו כי לא היה יהיה ברוך דיין אמת ומיתו חיים ברוך הוא כי אמת דינו שוטט הכל דינו שלם לאדם חשבונו ודינו והכל ישמו הודיה ייתנו ידענו אדוני כי תהיה צדק משפטיך תצעק בדבריך ותזכר בשופטיך ואין לערער אחר מדעת שופטיך צדיק אתה אדוני וישר משפטיך דיין אמת שופט אמת וצדק אמת ברוך דיין אמת שכל משפטיו בצדק ואמת נפש כה חי בידיך צדק מלא ימינך בידיך רחם על פליטת צאן ידיך ותאמר למלא חרב ידיך גדול היצע ורב עלייה אשר עיניך פקוחות על כל דרכי בני אדם לתת לאיש כדרכה וכפרים עליו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו אדוני נתן ואדוני לקח יהי שם אדוני מבורך מעתה ויד עולם והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית ובא להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כוחמתו אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ביום קורנו מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא יחסר בינו דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי שבטך משענתך, Hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai, dishanta bashemen roshi kosi revaya, achto v'chesed yirdefuni ko yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamihim. A Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd. A Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me to water in places of repose. He renews my life. He guides me in the right path, as befits his name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long years. O Lord, what are we that you should regard us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. They are like a dream. Like grass which is renewed in the morning it flourishes, in the evening it fades and withers. The years of our life are few. Their pride is but toil. They are soon gone and we fly away. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Guard the innocent and behold the upright, for there is posterity for a person of peace. Surely God will redeem my soul. The Lord redeems the souls of his servants. None of those who take refuge in God will be condemned. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's with great sadness that we are saying goodbye to Faye Raber, and I was told by the family that today is also the Yortzeit, and the graves are just behind us over here for the paternal grandmother and also uncle and aunt who perished in the Holocaust. Fegel bat Aryeh Leib v'Freida Halevi. In Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, we read the following. Ben Zoma said, "Who is wise? One who learns from every person. Who is strong? One who subdues his desires. Who is rich? One who is satisfied with his lot. And who deserves honor? One who honors others." When I think of this Mishnah, I think of Faye. Faye had all of these qualities, but the one quality that stood out was that she was a strong and tenacious woman. To live to 103, you have to be strong and tenacious. And her family told me that right up to her last month, she was sharp as a whip, a real gibora, very strong woman. I have very fond memories of Faye at the Herzliya synagogue. She was a long-standing member of our sisterhood. She could be counted on for almost every possible situation, whether it was preparing food in the shul kitchen for different programs or just helping to run programs. And she was also a regular attendee of our services. She came regularly on Shabbat mornings, and she was also extremely wise. I can remember that during sermons when I would ask a question of the congregation, Faye was not shy. She would put her hand up, she would give an answer, and sometimes she even added a question of her own. She was well read in Yiddishkeit. She spoke fluent Yiddish. Transmitting Yiddishkeit to her children was very important to her. She was careful to bring her children to shul, and even in the cold winters, she would put them in a sled and schlep them to the synagogue. She was a woman of deep faith and transmitted that to her children. She was a Jewish mother in every sense of the word, dedicated to her family and dedicated to her faith. May her memory be blessed. Tiyeh nishmata tzrura b'tzora chaim. May her soul be bound in the everlasting bond of life, and may we say Amen. There's a number of eulogies. I'd like to call Freda, her daughter, for the first eulogy.
Mama was born on September 1st, 1921, and she was the second youngest of 7 children, born at home at 360 Manitoba Avenue. She attended the Parrots Day School, completing grade 5, where the subjects were taught in English and Yiddish, and then from grade 6 and on to completing graduation at high school, she attended the afternoon program at the Parrot School. Grades 6 to 9 were completed at McRae School, and high school was at St. John's High. My mom had wanted to study to become a dietitian. Sadly, her parents could not afford university tuition. She attended the Manitoba Business College, where she was on the honor roll for dictation, shorthand, and typing. Tuition still posed a challenge for my mom and her parents. Mom would arrive at the business college before classes started to clean the blackboards, and on Saturday mornings to clean and fill the inkwells. This reduced her tuition by $10. Her mother prepared gefilte fish weekly for a neighbor for $1.50 or $2. In addition, Mom had bookkeeping and assisted a fisher who had very limited English with his correspondence. The tuition for business school was $17 a month. Our mother understood the value of hard work and was certainly motivated to succeed at whatever she attempted. Mom worked as a legal secretary. Her first job was with David Levin, and then with the first Ukrainian law firm, a father and son office, Swistoon and Swistoon. She and I found a card from this office complimenting her on her work ethic, her thoroughness, efficiency, and willingness to train and mentor other staff. When she and my father married in 1949, my dad said he would be the provider and Mom would be responsible for the home and raising the children. Well, my mom had a real knack for raising children and how to de-escalate situations. As a little girl on Niagara Street, I was annoyed about something, I don't remember what, but I stated emphatically I was leaving home. I filled a small brown paper bag with my socks and underwear, and as I was leaving the house, Mom asked me if she could prepare me some sandwiches. I remember sitting on the front porch and eventually came back into the house saying I had no place to go. She also warned me to never say "why should I," detailing what happened to her older sister Dora when she said "why should I" to their mother. Their mother was holding a raw chicken and swung the raw chicken at Dora. The message was very clear. Learn from other people's mistakes. We shared many mother and daughter activities, such as shopping on the 4th floor at Eaton's when I was growing up. And we shared many conversations while she washed the dishes and I dried the dishes. My mother was a lifelong learner and a consummate community volunteer. Over the years, she was active in the Herzliya Sisterhood, chairing the mother and daughter luncheon, the program chair for Sisterhood. She volunteered at the Jewish Public Library. She refereed carpet bowling for seniors through National Council of Jewish Women. She performed in the Winnipeg Jewish Theater, and she provided phone call checks for Jewish Child and Family Services. She also was a life member of Canadian Hadassah Witzo and was very active in the annual Hadassah Bazaars. As a lifelong learner, she took swimming lessons, but she could never master the breaststroke. and was so disappointed that she couldn't glide in the water. She studied Hebrew at the Herzliya with a Mrs. Binder when Label and I were in elementary school. She took bishop sewing lessons, square dancing, Latin American dancing, and she and I would practice the cha-cha and the rumba in the kitchen. She enjoyed exercising, and as a young woman, she went snowshoeing. She played badminton at the YMHA, and when the Rady Center opened, she enjoyed aquafit 3 times a week and walking on the track well into her 80s. She and my dad traveled, wintering in Palm Springs, visiting Israel, and both of them particularly enjoyed a trip to Japan, sponsored by the YKK Zipper Company for manufacturers and their spouses. We as a family enjoyed spending the month of July at Winnipeg Beach growing up. As many of you know, Mom decided to come to Ottawa after Dad passed away in 2017 to, as what she called, on a trial basis. Being very social, an excellent communicator, and a terrific mahjong player, she settled in beautifully with Charlie and I. She attended a Seniors Day program weekly at the JCC. We played mahjong. We attended weekly Shabbat services, and we celebrated Shabbat and holidays with Yossi, Julia, Samantha, Emma, and Leon. Mom was wonderful company, always patient, understanding, encouraging, and generous in sharing her knowledge and experiences. Family were very important to her. She always shared stories about her parents, her siblings, how they helped each other, and how they were always there for one another. My parents made a great effort to attend most of the bar and bat mitzvahs and weddings of their nieces and nephews. A special effort was made for her 3 grandsons, for Joshua, Yossi, and Michael, to spend lots of time together. Given that Joshua lives in Vancouver, we would meet in Winnipeg for Pesach, spend summers at Winnipeg Beach, and if possible, winter break in Palm Springs. And we've tried to continue to do our tradition of spending Pesach together in Ottawa. She would tell me every night when I tucked her into bed how grateful she was to spend this time in Ottawa. And we too were very grateful for having this special time with her. I believe my mom and my dad have left a wonderful legacy. And we love you dearly forever, Mom.
Daughter-in-law Lynn for the second eulogy.
Honored Rabbi, family, I stand here with my brother David Superstein in absentia to honor the life of Fego Bat Aryeh Lev Halevi Vifreda. I say honor in life because that was what Mummy really was. From the incredible meal she served to her involvement in the Jewish community and Judaism, she was about life. I only knew Mom for a relatively short time, 27 years. I can remember the first time. I was flying to Edmonton to be with my father and brother for Rosh Hashanah. It was at that point of Leilu and me that we were getting serious. And so, his parents who were in Vancouver wanted to check out the American goods. I arrived, large bouquet in hand. Zeta stood in the corner, evaluating. and Mother promptly produced the revered piece of fish loaf with cream. It was delicious. Even if it wasn't delicious, I would have had to have said yes. Well, to break the tension, I started to laugh. Zedek said, "She's too loud." Here was that long pregnant pause before Label finally said, "And that's the way I like her." So I was in, but only by a hair. There were the expected wonderful yontovs and visits, beautiful smells emanating from the kitchens in Winnipeg, Vancouver, Ottawa. I slowly got to know Mom, but I was 42, and she was 77. Late to start with so much to make up. Mom was always warm and kind. She made having a mother-in-law easy. So time whispered away, as it does, and the family grew, and family members were lost. When Zedek died, Ruby moved to Ottawa to be with Freda and Charlie. Both Freda and Label are elevated for the love and help they poured into her, charging her batteries. Every medical detail was taken care of by Freda, and every pore of my mommy was suffused in love by Label. I had the greatest pleasure to be included in this, singing to her in FaceTime in my broken Yiddish and giving her kushis, kisses. She would blow them back to me in great laughter through the phone. I will never forget. Faye will be deeply missed. We had the joy to be together for her 103rd birthday just 2 weeks ago. It was a very happy, sad time. Both Label and Freda were present at her demise, just what every parent wants. May her memory be for a blessing, and may our family be comforted with the mourners of Zion. We miss you, Faye. We will always miss you. Be well and Shemaim with Dad, joined again in love. Thank you.
For the third eulogy, grandson Yossi Todah.
On Friday nights, before the Shabbat meal, we sing the song Eshet Chayil, meaning the woman of valor. It's a way to honor the mother of the family for all the hard work that they do running the household and preparing for Shabbat. Bobby Faye was the matriarch of our family, and I'd like to share a little bit about why Bobby Faye was the absolute best. She was caring and was interested in our lives and what we're doing, listening, asking thoughtful questions, and giving advice. I would call Winnipeg every Sunday night at 6 o'clock Winnipeg time, and we would recap the week, and Bobby always wanted to know what was going on. Zedek would be very quiet and just listen. On the odd occasion that I didn't call, I would certainly get a call on Monday, checking to make sure I was still alive and that I was all right. A favorite saying of Bobby Faye's was America Ganef, loosely meaning clever Americans, or imagine that. Think about the technological changes that Bobby Faye experienced in her lifetime, from the 1920s to the present times. She may not have understood the technology or even, or used it or understood it, but she was always impressed when it worked. For example, she would always wait until one of the grandsons came to visit to change the clock on her car radio for daylight savings time and back. And once we did it, you would get an America Ganef. Now on cooking, Bob's told us specifically she didn't want to be remembered for her cooking and didn't want us listing off her specialties like kreplach and all of her baked goods. But I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the hours that she would spend at her post in the kitchen from early in the morning until late at night, cooking and baking to keep the chest freezer fully stocked so that she could send us home with care parcels of homemade goods whenever we would visit. In the 90s, not the 1990s, but in her 90s, when she finally retired from the kitchen, things changed and it was our turn to try to replicate her recipes and impress her with our cooking. Getting her feedback and reaction when I baked chocolate chip cookies, a blueberry cake, or even my version of her tuna casserole, and her reaction, especially if she liked it. And if she did, you would get an America Ganef, or you might get zwei goldene Hand, 2 golden hands. if it was really good. When my kids wonder why I'm so particular about the kitchen and keeping everything organized, that's a direct link from Bobby Faye, who would always say, everything has a place and everything in its place, and that you never go to bed with a dirty kitchen. Bobby was very affectionate, and visiting Winnipeg meant lots and lots of hugs and kisses to recharge her batteries. If you remember the old terminal at the airport with Air Canada on one side and Canadian on the other, when we would arrive, Bobby Faye would be waiting at the bottom of the escalator, ready for hugs and kisses, while Zeta waited in the car so he wouldn't get a ticket from the parking meter. On motivation and work ethic, and you heard how involved Bob's was, one of my favorite stories, and our favorite stories, was that Bobby Faye learned how to drive at age 40. She was sitting at the bus stop on Grant Avenue, watching people drive by and saying to herself, I'm just as smart and capable as them. If they can do it, why can't I? She taught us not to doubt ourselves or our abilities and to take chances. Similarly, there was never any procrastination, and Bobs would always say, don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Lastly, what made Bobs the best was that she startled very easily. As kids, we would set an egg timer on her counter that she wouldn't see, and when it would go off, she'd scream and jump. And she may chase us with the polonic or the wooden spoon. It was a different era back then. In closing, I'm very grateful that Bobs was in Ottawa for the last 7 years and that we got to regularly visit with her and that she got to spend so much time getting to know her great-grandchildren. We're also very grateful to Ima and Shaarey for being such good caregivers and adding years to Bobby's life and ensuring she was comfortable and peaceful right up until the very end. We love you, Bobs, and we'll miss you for the rest of our lives.
Amen.
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 Thank you, baby.
What I'd like to share with everybody are my own personal memories of my mother. As many of you have already said, here I am at 68 years old, having spent so much time with my mother. I also want to make mention that her grandchildren, who are in their 40s, have also been able to spend so much time with her, whereas Freda and myself, we never knew our grandparents. So on that note, let me share some of my earliest memories that I have of my mother. When I was 2 years old and we moved into the house on Niagara Street, and then probably as a 3 or 4 year old, I can remember petting the dog next door. If any of you know my mother, she was very much afraid of dogs and did not encourage my going over. But I just had this affinity with the dog next door, and he was very gentle and playful, and so I decided that I wanted to play with the dog, and Mom finally acquiesced, but kept a very close eye over me. And I might add that later on as an adult, I did acquire a German Shepherd, and Mother was very much terrified of the dog. And when they came to visit to Vancouver for the first time, Mom actually suggested that our dog be put in the kennel while they were visiting. Now, of course, as all of you know, as a family member, you just can't take a family member and ask them to leave. So I encouraged Mother to try and get to know our dog, and they had a very interesting kind of relationship. If my mother came close to the dog dog was a female, she would put her ears back and put her head down and sort of scurry away because she was somewhat afraid or intimidated of my mother as well. I'd have to say that, as Yossi mentioned and Freda did as well, that Mother was extremely affectionate. I would often say to my mother that she and I had such a very special relationship that it was easy to hug and kiss, coochie-coo all the time. As a matter of fact, I would say to her, look at us, like I'm in my 60s, Mom's like 90s, end of the 90s already, at 100 years old. We're still hugging and kissing and coochie-cooing one another. we had such a very, very special time together. The other thing that I should mention, though, of course, is that Mother was the disciplinarian in the family. So you can only imagine what would happen if I came home from school and my marks were not exactly as they ought to be. So Mom would, where am I here? In any case, Mom would, well, basically three things would happen when I would come home. One is that she would have a conversation with the teachers who would say to her, label can do better. So that would naturally mean extra work at home, privileges like television taken away, and at one time, she, my behavior not being very good, she actually threatened to sit in the classroom with me. I can only imagine as a child how embarrassing that would be if your mother had to come and sit next to you. So these kind of, she was like a psychologist. She knew exactly what buttons to press to make sure that my behavior would be appropriate. The other thing that was interesting with Mom was that she helped me along with sports. I remember being down in the basement with her and having a hockey stick and asking her to show me how to stick handle. And the basement was unfinished with a tennis ball. Mom picked up the hockey stick and I asked her, how do you know how to do this, Mom? And she says, well, I grew up with brothers. That's how I know. So what was funny, I don't know if this is important to you, but I'll share it anyway. I shoot right-handed, so that means I got my right hand at the bottom of the stick. Not that long ago, well, mind you, she's 103, so in the early 90s, she happened to be in Vancouver. I said, Mom, let's do some stick handling on the driveway. Well, you know that my mother's a left-handed shot, and I never realized that. In other words, her left-handed at the bottom of the stick. So she was the one who took me out for buying skates, hockey sticks, football equipment when I was playing football, all of those sorts of things. But also it's important to Mom was Yiddishkeit. So that when my bar mitzvah year was coming up and there was the preparation, it was automatic for her because we was going to Talmud Torah that reading the entire Sedra for my bar mitzvah was a no-brainer. And so we prepared that for Parshat Vayigash. And then after that, which was at the end of December, Mom says to me, well, you know what? We have Yortzites in April for her parents and for Uncle Sam. And she said, wouldn't it be lovely if you would do a Torah reading or a Haftarah? So that happened to be Acharei Mot Kedoshim at that time. So that was a lot to learn. Suddenly it was a double parsha. And then later on there were other Haftarah to read. So as a consequence, I actually became quite a proficient Torah reader, given practice to read, to learn it. But I ended up doing Haftarah all year long. There was always, sadly, a cycle. So I can actually read a Haftarah at a moment's notice. It's like playing music. Once you know how, just learn some of the vocabulary, some of the words. If it's from Yeshayahu, it's a little more difficult, but that makes it easy. But it's thanks to Mother's encouragement and insistence that these kind of skills were developed. Like as was mentioned, going to synagogue all the time, being able to daven was not foreign or unusual. So then, just to conclude, I'll just repeat again how special our relationship was, that we could kuchiku. We had an interesting expression about noringzach. Noringzach in Yiddish means nuzzling. So it's something that I'll miss deeply. As a chobni, vemen to norizach. So we'll miss Mother very much. She was an outstanding mother. Very, very lucky to have her in our lives. And she's next to Zedek now. And perhaps in the Olam Haba, seeing her parents now for the first time in a long, long time. They died in 1951. And all of her other siblings. So we wish her well on the journey, and we will respect her memory and honor her with Kaddish and conversation about her for many, many more years to come in Yirtzeh Hashem.
In Judaism, the greatest mitzvah that we can do, the greatest act that we can do is called Chesed Shel Emet, which means an act of kindness, which is an act of kindness of truth. And it's an act of kindness that we get nothing in return for. We do it purely for the love and as an act of love. And the very last act of kindness that we can do for a person who's left this world is to fill in the grave. Who better to do it than those who knew her, those who loved her, and those who spent their life with her. So I want to invite everyone. We should at least try to cover the casket itself. And I want to invite everyone to please come and participate in this very, very important mitzvah. And just to remind everyone, there are different customs, but the most important is that you take the shovel and you fill the grave, and you don't pass the shovel to the next person. You just put it down. The next person will take it, and we'll continue on from there. So I invite everybody to come forward.
Okay. We'll put this down. Or we can hold it for a moment. Oh, that's okay. For the kids.
Near the sidewalk. Thank you. You spoke beautiful.
You're a dog.
Am I going home then?
Today is what day?
Monday?
Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going west. I can only considering my family is huge, it's dwindled down to me and my brother, everybody, and my cousin in Edmonton. Well, they're from White Russia. So it was like, we should take 2 pews up in one section. But you still got a lot of guys. It's so nice. Right?
And I don't know a lot of the He said, Donna's son isn't he last? It's too bad. We used to go.
Yeah. Right?
I just knew
That's really nice. Like, have some fingers in the pie because this is tinkles away. Some birthday party I'll tell you we doubled it.
Are you related?
No. I knew the family since we were growing up.
Okay.
And my sister was the same age as
Your sister is
Andrew's friend.
So which are you related to lots of the stories? Like Anita who passed away?
Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up with a lot of Anita and her sister Sandra, who died many years ago. She had a cottage at Gimli. And Elaine Stern. Okay.
Dave Stern, who had a car in the
And the one that had the car dealership?
Yeah.
She was okay. And you grew up in Edmonton?
No.
You're yeah, I bump into Elaine every so often. I don't see her a lot.
And John knows Raber, their friend, visited him in Vancouver.
So, and as I said, my late father-in-law and his brother and sister. That was my father-in-law's sister. So she would. I lived on the house on Manitoba Avenue. When I got married, I moved from Queenston.
Is there anybody else who wants to take a chance?
So when they talked about the address, I grew up there. I grew up in that house on I lived in Manitoba Avenue. I had memories of climbing up the stairs. And I kept kosher dinner. They kept, my mom and dad kept kosher, and I did it for chicken. Who was this seven? Did you put that in the information you sent me? Katie passed away when she was 6 years old. And like Sheldon Thomas on TV at 29 years old. Your mother? No. your Rabah, I'm still trying to find out the Rubenstein part of our family. Before I die, I'd like to know that next door to the Rubensteins.
So here's the El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Fegel Bat Aryeh Leba Levi, Shalcha Le'olama, Bavur, שאנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest and peace beneath the sheltering wings of your divine presence to the soul of Fagel, the daughter of Aryeh Leib Halevi and Freda, who has gone to her eternal resting place. We will give charity and offer prayers in memory of her soul. May her soul be in paradise, Master of mercy. Protect her forever. Bring her under the shelter of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the eternal bond of life. May the Lord be her possession. May she rest peacefully, and let us say, Amen. The family has also asked that we do a special Kel Malei Rachamim for the relatives whose yortzeit is today, so we'll do a second one as well. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמות מלכה שרה בת ברל ואת לאה בת שמואל ואת שמואל בן שמואל שהלכו לעולמם בעבור שאנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, בצרור החיים את נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר amen. We conclude with a psalm and then the mourner's kaddish. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר בנודה שירביצני, על מי מלוכות ינעלני, נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי ילך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך משענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת והשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, הטוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Mourner's Kaddish.
גדול בקדש מרחיים, ועמדי הוא עתיד להתחסדה ולחיה, לתיה ולעסקה, יתכון לחיי עלמה, ולמבנה קראתה די ירושלים, ולשללה הקלה בגאווה, ולמעקר פולחנה נוכרעה מנהרה, ולעטבה פולחנה די שמיה לעטרה, והמליך קודשה בריחו, B'malchutei v'yikarei v'yatzmach porkanei v'yikarev meshipei
Amen.
v'chayechon v'yomeichon v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kari v'yiru
Amen.
Yehei Shnei Rabah
Barach le'olam u'lamei almaya.
Yitbarach, Yishamach, Yitahar, Yitzoman, Yitnaseh, Yithadar, Yitalev, Yitalal, Shmei L'Kudasham,
Richu.
Le'ela, Minkol, Berchata, V'Shirata, Ushbechata, V'Nechemata, Ta'miran, Ba'alma, V'Yibru, Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Shlomo, Rabah, Min Shemaya, L'Chaim, Aleinu, Ba'al Kol Yisrael, V'Yibru, Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom Imromav, Huya Oseh Shalom, Aleinu Val Kol Yisrael, V'Yimru, Amen.
Amen. I want to thank everyone for coming. The meal of condolences will be at 4 o'clock at Herzliya Synagogue, 620 Brock Street. The family will be sitting Shiva in Winnipeg just tonight and tomorrow morning at the Herzliya Synagogue. Tonight's services are at 6:05. Everyone is welcome. And tomorrow morning, Shaarey is at 7:30 a.m. at the Herzliya Synagogue. Then the family will be traveling to Ottawa to finish the Shiva in Ottawa. This concludes our service. I want to thank everyone. And our attention now turns to the mourners. Up to now, our attention was on the burial, and now our attention turns to the mourners. And we have a mitzvah of Nichum Avelim to comfort the mourners. And I'd like to ask that we make two lines, two parallel lines just here, facing one another, and the mourners will walk right through, and we will comfort the mourners with the traditional chant that we say. So just two lines right over here.
Makom Yenachem Etchem, Im Shara V'Lei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May the Almighty comfort you with all mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you, everyone.
You're going back to Herzliya? Oh, before fair. So the Herzliya at 4 o'clock?
But you know what? I guess there's no Shiva tomorrow other than just